Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about anchoring dates. On the basis of this anchoring dates, how we should be going for squaring of time and price. We'll be looking for some of the cycles over here. Then we'll be looking for 360 days, 360 years, 360 degrees. What this is, because this has been mentioned in tunnel through the air. We'll also look for something which is 1260, 1290. This may be number of days because these are specific cycles which are there. This cycles comes to somewhere around 3.5 years. And then this leads us across to a cycle of 40 years, which is very important for us to understand. We'll also have something related to 490. This is in terms of years. It can be number of days also. We'll see this separately. Again, we have something called as day for a year and a year for a day. This all things are mostly given in tunnel through the air. So what we'll do is we quickly go towards tunnel through the air book, which is there. So for anchoring dates, we go to the book, and if you look on page number 371, we find out about 2 years. First is 1932 and the second year is 1982. Now these two are very important dates. This can be called as anchoring dates. Now, one more important thing which I wanted to specifically mention is, if we look at the difference between these years, it comes to 49 or maybe 50 years. So this is again something really important for us to understand. So let's go one by one. Let's first of all go towards 1932 and try to understand how things do work over here. Now, why 1932 is important? First of all, Gann did mention in Tunnel Through the Air that there will be a huge fall starting from somewhere around 1929 onwards till 1932. So this fall was there, and the low of this fall came in 1932. So 1932, around 8th of July, we had a low. So if we look at this low, which was exactly coming to 40.56 on that date, 40.56. So if we look from this low, probably we got a high which was there on 8th of September. Looking at the low, which is 40.56. Now from 40.56, the market did go exactly up by 40.83 points, which was we got a high of 81.39. So this is one thing which is there in terms of price which is there. Now, if I look in terms of time, from this low which is there to the high, I exactly got somewhere around 43 bars. Now, what is this 43 which is important for us? The high of this day was 42.61, which comes around to 43. So from that high of 43, we got 43 trading days. And from that low of 40.56, we got an upward movement of 40.83. This is something precisely squaring of time and price, where price and time did meet specifically on the basis of this specific low that we got for the anchoring day or year of 1932. So price gives us time. Now we go to the next year, which is 1982. Now, from this low of 1982, if we go on a weekly chart and if we go further till 365 weeks, what we get is we get a high. Now, 365 weeks is again something in terms of time which is really important. We'll see that in Tunnel Through the Air book also, because it is not that only 365 days are important, but we can also go for in terms of time for 365 weeks, 365 years. We'll see that in Tunnel Through the Air. But if we look for maybe from the low of 1982 to a high of 1989, we get somewhere around 365 weeks. And if you see in terms of days, this comes to 2555 days. Now, from the low to the high, we got somewhere around 2000 points or 1970 points, which were there on the top. And percentage, this has come exactly to 256%. Now, if you look at the days which are there, they are again 2560 days. If we remove a zero which is there in the calculation for 2560 days, we have 256%. Number of days comes down to 365 weeks. In terms of number of years, that is 7 years, which is really important for us because we understand how important the number 7 was there for WD Gann. So 7 years, which comes to 365 weeks, which comes to approximately around 2560 calendar days. And we can say that, okay, it comes somewhere around to 84 months. Now, why is it that we are not considering 365 days and we are considering this as 365 weeks? Again, we'll come down to this point because this is again really important, and W.D. Gann has already specially mentioned about this in his book, Tunnel Through the Air. Let's go to that part now. Now we are on page number 371 of Tunnel Through the Air, and we'll go through the first line, which is really important for us to understand. First thing that he says is cycles that has a time or a season referred to in the Bible meant 360 days, 360 years, or 360 degrees. Now, does it mean that WD Gann had to tell us that, okay, these are interpretation in terms of degrees or maybe days or in terms of years, which can be also in terms of weeks? So here we saw that 365 weeks is also important, which comes somewhere around to 7 years. So this is the time calculation which plays an important role over here, which we need to understand. 360 days, 360 years, 360 degrees, probably this is something which is more interchangeable. Next part, as we go further, what we understand is he knew that half a time meant 180 degrees, 180 days, or years. So it is very clearly about here that days, degrees, years are interchangeable because he started from days, then years and degrees. Here he starts with degrees, then days and years. Now, this becomes one of the bases for understanding the next concept, because here it has been clearly mentioned that this is in terms of time. So time is 360 days, 360 years, or 360 degrees. And half of the time it comes to 180 degrees, 180 days, or 180 years. We'll only go through the important things which we need to understand. There are again other important concepts like 70 into 7, that is 490 days, which are again been mentioned in the book, but we'll probably try to take that separately. We don't want to mix all the subjects together. So these are more of Jubilee years where W.D. Gann has talked about. You can just read across through that. He again talks about 49 years. So 49 years from 1982 to 1932. This is again something really important. We'll link that, but let's try to stick to one subject at a time. We go to the next page. I'll just start somewhere around from here. And sway by him that lived forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. So we have time, times, and a half. And when we shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. He figured that a time equaled 20 years or a score, and that a time times equal 400 years, and half a time equaled 10 years. Now, there are two different interpretations which we need to understand. The first interpretation is, as he talks, time times equals 400 years, right? Where he says about time as 20 years. Now, this is a different perception which has been given by W.D. Gann. We need to have a better understanding about the things which have been given about here. So, this is about 20 years, and this concept is totally different. So, we are not talking about this concept over here because this takes us to a totally different interpretation. We again go to the interpretation of time, which on the previous page is been given as 360 days, 360 years, or 360 degrees. Now, to understand these 360 degrees, what we'll do is we'll just go through Google, and on Google we'll try to understand something about 360 days. So if you just type 360 days over here, it reads, the 360-day calendar is a method of measuring duration used in financial models. So we'll try to understand that. It is based on merging the three major calendar systems into one complex clock, with the 360-day year derived from the average year of lunar and the solar. That is, the solar is 365.2425 solar plus 360 354.3829 lunar. So if we add these 2 days together and then divide it by 2, we get a cycle which is 359.8127 days, which is rounded about to 360 days. Now, this is the basic formulation or calculation for 360 days, which is again important. And this is not that this has just come around from anywhere. The Romans used this calendar for 360 days. In India, the Rig Veda did talk about the 12 months and 360 days. Egypt and other places, again, we can talk about this calculations. We can get into the details of that. If you want, you can just try to interpret or maybe go into the details of this part as such. So we'll again go back to our calculation. So here we saw about the 360 days and the relevance about the 360 days, why that is important, why we need to take those calculations. And then we go to the next part, which is time times and a half. Now, again, this calculation is very much important for us to understand what is time times and a half. Now, we have seen that time is 360 days or 360 years or maybe 360 degrees. Here we are considering 360 days. Let's go for the calculations which are there on the basis of 360 days. Again, if we try to search on Google, which is maybe probably for the day year principle, we'll try to understand this more of in details. Time times and a half, right? Time times and a half. Historical interpreters have usually understood the time times and a half, that is 1, that is time is 1, times is by 2, that is 1 plus 2 plus half is 0.5, which comes to 3.5. Now this 3.5 is in terms of, if we consider this 360 days calculation which is there, then this would be coming to 3.5, that is 3.5 years, and 3.5 years comes to around 1260 days in totality, or maybe this can be 42 months. Now there are various references which have been given. Time times and a half, time times and a half, 42 months in the Revelations. Daniel's, it has been given 1260 days is again been given in the Revelations. 1 to 6 days is again been given. Time times and a half is given. 42 months has been given. So all these calculations do come into the picture. What we'll do is we'll try to understand the interpretations of this 1260 days which are been given. So again, if we go for 1260 calendar days, what we get is 180 weeks. Now again, if we see in terms of time, what W. Gann has written is 180 degrees, 180 days, 180 years, and we can consider even 180 weeks. So if we consider 180 weeks, what we get over here is 180 weeks is 1260 calendar days. Again, this is again a very important time cycle for us to understand. And what it comes down to is approximately 42 weeks and 3 years, 5 months, which is 3.5 months, which we need to understand. And that is how we get a reference of this number of days, which is there 1260 or 1260 days. Let's try to read further what W. Gann has written. So we are not going or looking at this 20-year span as specifically at this stage. Again, Daniel, and in this book reference has been given. And from the time that the daily sacrifices shall be taken away, and the abomination that math visual set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1,305 and 30 days. 1,290 days are to be added to the time the war broke up in Europe in 1928, and the 1,335 days being 45 days more. The blessed Jubilee Day will follow from the time the war ended in 1932. Again, we are getting a reference of 1932 over here. Probably we have something from 1928 to 1932. Again, this comes as a 5-year cycle, which is again very important for us to understand, until the great celebration and signing of peace and establish the brotherhood of man. Now, again, we talk here about 1290 days. Over here, we had a calculation of 1260 days. Now, in between 1260 and 1290, we have a time span of 30 days. Now, if we look at something which is 360 days, 360 days in a cycle, if we consider as a year, we have something left out as 5 days, because we have this entire cycle of 365 days as a year. And here there is something of 5 days, which is as a differentiation. And if we look down over here between that 1260 days and 1290 days, we have something again additional of 30 days. Now, what is this buffer of 30 days, which is there on probably this cycle of 3.5 years and 5 days as a buffer for this 360 days calculation? Because these calculations are really important for us to understand. Let's try to have a hint towards that, and probably in the next session we'll try to understand how these 5 days are being adjusted. Fine. So we'll meet in the next section again and probably try to take things further here from there.